Brian Thomas and Devon Achane have seen their ADPs rise significantly over the last month, but you should still be buying them in your Dynasty leagues. We'll explain why in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her over at Yahoo. On today's show, we are breaking down the biggest ADP risers and fallers in the month of September, courtesy of Dynasty League Football. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about some trade targets that you need to make before week 3 kicks off. But Kate, I want to start with Brian Thomas Jr., who has looked very good through the first 2 weeks of the regular season. He has seen his ADP rise more than any other player in Dynasty League Football. Are you still buying?
I am still buying. And I will say, I'm still kind of shocked that he had such a low ADP to begin with, especially given the amount of hype that we've had for these first round wide receivers. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. was not one of the top 3 receivers in this class, but he was still a very good prospect, right? Has all the physical traits, has the speed, the length. He's a talented wide receiver, very productive in college, especially from a touchdown perspective. And now he makes his debut in the NFL. And let's be honest, the Jaguars offense has not been as promised. Right? We're looking at Trevor Lawrence, and he's kind of just not looking like. And you know what? I will say, up against the Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns, he's got another really kind of tough upcoming schedule. The Bills, the Texans, Colts are fine. Bears, Patriots. I don't think they're going to look any better anytime soon. But I am buying into the idea that Brian Thomas Jr. is the future of the wide receiver position for this group. And he's got the draft pedigree. He's got the physical traits. What is there not to love about Brian Thomas?
And he's a perfect fit with Trevor Lawrence. He'll throw, or he'll get open down the field and Trevor Lawrence will find him. He's made at least one big reception in each of the first 2 games of the season. And one of the things that we knew about Brian Thomas, going into the draft and even after the draft process, was hey, this is an amazing athlete who's still learning how to play wide receiver. It's going to take a while, but you're already seeing him make these big explosive plays. I can't imagine what it's going to look like in year 2 when he's in the same system for a second year with the same quarterback. And frankly, Kate, you look at the other receivers on this offense, Gabe Davis doesn't do much for me. Christian Kirk has been banged up over the last couple of years. He hasn't done much in the first 2 weeks of the season. It would not be a shock to see him be the number 1 option in this passing attack sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think all signs kind of point to him as just being this alpha. And you mentioned the fact that he wasn't as refined a prospect as a Malik Neighbors, as a Rome Odunze, as a Marvin Harrison Jr. But again, all of those physical traits are there. I do think and maybe I'm just completely delusional, I still think that this Jaguars offense is better than we've seen to this point. And again, you're not really going to see that, I think, in the next month or so. So if you're maybe out there trying to target Brian Thomas Jr., maybe you wait until the next month passes and they have another, pretty rough looking stretch of matchups here that this Jaguars offense might not look so great in. But I still am a firm believer that he is the future of this pass attack.
See, I have a different philosophy. I think I want to get him now. They have some nationally televised games coming up, including this week against the Bills on Monday Night Football. If he has, let's say, even an average game, and it's 4 catches for 60 yards, including a 35-yard bomb, his price is going to go up. So I want to go get him now while he's still being drafted and valued as wide receiver 26. We talked about on yesterday's show, Kate, Michael Pittman's trade value. Like if I can flip Michael Pittman for Brian Thomas, I would do that right now in a heartbeat.
Smash, accept, instant.
Let's talk about another player who has seen a massive rise in their ADP. And this one's interesting. It's Devon Achane, who was being drafted all summer somewhere between RB7 and RB10. He is now firmly RB6 right now, only behind Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor, up to 20th overall in startup dynasty leagues. Kate, I know you were not a huge fan of him going into the year. Have your thoughts changed at all?
I'm kind of buying in, and let's be clear, it is not because of Achane's like efficiency on the ground at this point, averaging 3.8 yards per attempt, just 2 yards after contact per attempt. That's pretty much bottom of the barrel among the 31 running backs with at least 20 touches or 20 rush attempts here in the first 2 weeks. That 2.03 yards after contact per attempt ranks 29th. That yards per carry average also, not fantastic, bottom 10. So like we're not really seeing that uber efficiency on the ground, but I gotta say, I'm absolutely enamored with the usage that we've seen from him as a receiver through those first 2 weeks. 98th percentile in PFF receiving grade, 71st percentile in missed forced tackles per reception, 95th percentile at the position, averaging 3.08 yards per route run. That is absolutely ridiculous for a running back, for any player really at any position. Like, I love the usage of him in the receiving game. And I don't know, maybe is it too early to eat crow on this?
I mean, it is. We're only 2 games in the season, but I think one of the things that's been different is Mike McDaniel's attitude towards giving him these touches. Like even coming out of this Buffalo game in week 2, I mean, Achane was getting touches like late in that game. And McDaniel's like, listen, he's earned them. Like he's come in, he's had a fantastic offseason. He's one of our best players. We should get him the ball. Now, we should mention Raheem Mostert did not play in week 2. It seems like he's
also had an injury, suffered in this game.
So there's a chance once the running back room gets healthier, we see maybe a more even distribution of touches. But I think with Tua Tagovailoa going to be out for the next 4 games at least, the Dolphins are going to have to find creative ways to make big plays on offense. And I think the easiest way to do that is just getting Achane the ball, either as a runner, as a receiver in the screen game. I think he's going to stay kind of right where he's being drafted.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Skylar Thompson especially might look to the running back position as one of these outlet options. Like, yeah, you've got Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, but they're going to be a threat, but like it only matters if you can get them the football in these advantageous matchups. So like, I think they're going to take full opportunity to, feature Achane as heavily as possible, lean on them to whatever degree that they possibly can. Maybe we start to see Jaylen Wright mix in, but like to this point, that hasn't been the case. They're not, really looking to feature Jaylen Wright at this point. No. And I think maybe that goes back to the fact, like we said, coming out, he's this big, fast dude, but coming out of Tennessee, pro style offensive concepts were not what they were executing. Yeah. So like,
I was gonna say, I think my guess is that Wright is going to be the eventual replacement for Raheem Mostert, but I think Achane's role in this offense is pretty well established.
Yeah, I again might be too early to totally eat crow on this, but I'm here without any Achane shares, and I'm feeling like a fool.
All right, okay, let's talk about the biggest ADP fallers in the month of September, including our guy, Travis Kelce. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, like me, love cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a CJ Stroud rookie optic card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I just listed, including Patrick Mahomes rookie cards, Josh Allen cards, obviously CJ Stroud cards, were hit in the last couple of weeks from Arena Club slab pack drops. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After you pull your cards, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. Plus, if you just want your cards, they ship them to you incredibly fast. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL. That is arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Every day on Friday's show, we'll break down this Patriots-Jets Thursday night football game. We'll also get you ready for week 3 by some commotion, so make sure you tune in for that. But, Kate, let's talk about some of the biggest fallers in ADP. We've got to start with Travis Kelce, who just a couple months ago was being drafted as tight end 2, tight end 3, all the way down to tight end 7. He's dropped like 30 spots in ADP. We touched on this a little bit on yesterday's show, but it feels like it's going to continue to drop.
It feels like this is like so over, Marcus. It feels devastatingly over. Now, I mean, again, it's super, super early in the process to be making any type of judgments, but I just want to go back and like look at Travis Kelce and his usage here through the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, obviously, the Chiefs made an effort to bring in some extra help here. Rashee Rice going to be in the mix here, at least for the time being. Bringing in Xavier Worthy, like all of these aspects, I think we all kind of question, are they going to be force feeding Travis Kelce? Now, Hollywood Brown out of the picture, but through the first 2 weeks of the season, even without Hollywood Brown in the mix to begin with, Travis Kelce has been targeted on just 13% of his routes run. For context, he has never in a season been targeted on fewer than 20.7% of his routes run. And that was back in 2015, like his first year in like a full-time role. So, I mean, that's a pretty dramatic drop-off in usage.
It is. And I struggle with this one because I think when I watch him on the field, he looks slow. And I know that the Chiefs are trying to save him for the postseason when these games matter. But I wonder now, Kate, with the injury to Hollywood, obviously he didn't play yet, but now with the injury to Isaiah Pacheco, like where are they going to generate offensive? Teams are going to start doubling Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy is a rookie who's only 20. Like he's not ready for that big time role. Maybe the Chiefs are just going to have to use more Travis Kelce to help the offense get not big chunk plays like we're used to seeing, but like those 4 to 5 to 6 yard plays to just get you into more manageable second and third downs. I do see a possibility where because of all the injuries, we start to see his usage go way up.
I mean, Pacheco being out is kind of a big question mark for me. What does this offense look like without him? Do they feel comfortable with Carson Steele, Samaje Perine mixing into the third down conversation? Does Kareem Hunt see the field? Andy Reid hasn't ruled out Kareem Hunt playing here in week 3, despite the fact that he's like just signed. So I think there's a lot of things up in the air, but definitely if they're not able to consistently gain yards in the run game without Isaiah Pacheco, this could be definitely kind of like you remember last year how, and even now for the Buccaneers, when they're not able to run the ball super efficiently, they take these sort of, dump offs to Rashad White. I could almost envision the Chiefs doing the same kind of thing to like substitute the run a little bit with Travis Kelce, but it's still concerning. Like you said, it's not just the stats that look bad. It's also the tape. He just doesn't look like he looks like he's a 34-year-old tight end.
So let me give you a real life situation. I'm in a dynasty league where it's pretty big benches, but I happen to have Jake Ferguson and Travis Kelce in the same team. Jake Ferguson banged up, did not play last week, playing Baltimore this week with that Ravens defense, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. And I think I'm going to play Ferguson over Travis Kelce just because I want to see Kelce being used more before I put him back in the lineup because through the first 2 weeks, he's crushed your fantasy teams if you've left him in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all kind of fair game at this point. Yeah.
All right, he's not the only ADP loser over the last month. We should mention Kyren Williams, and this is not a huge drop, but he did drop about 12 spots, which is a full round. Kyren Williams now being drafted as RB10. He was being drafted as high as RB6 earlier this summer. Are you buying Kyren Williams at RB10, or are you kind of out?
I don't mind Kyren Williams here at RB10. It feels like great value. Let's consider the fact that, like, yes, there's some concerns about the immediate production, right? Like there's injuries on the offensive line. It's a disaster. And that could definitely affect the overall efficiency of Kyren Williams in the run game. But you cannot ignore the fact that, like, yes, they brought in Blake Corum, but I mean, the participation from Kyren Williams hasn't changed at all. Now, does that, start to shift here in the second half of the year? Does it shift just due out to necessities because of, the injuries to the wide receiver position? Maybe that offense starts to look a little bit different here in the coming weeks. But, like, I just think Kyren Williams is a really good running back. And I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Kate. Are you concerned? It is hard. Are you concerned that with the injuries to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and to the offensive line, that this Rams offense, let's say for the next 6 weeks, because it sounds like Puka Nacua is going to be out for a while, that this offense just might be really bad? And if it gets to the point where the Rams are, let's say 1-4, 1-5, that maybe they'll start to ease up on his workload and give some of that work to Blake Corum?
I'm probably more concerned about the injuries on the offensive line than anything else. Like things could look pretty darn rough. But again, like the usage, I just can't really fathom why we didn't see a bigger uptick in usage for like a Blake Corum. Like this is why I'm like so confused too, because also Blake Corum is the future of the position here. So we're talking dynasty. I don't know,
and that's where I could also see Sean McVay going the other way. It's like, hey, we have no Cooper Kupp and no Puka Nacua for the next month. Kyren, get ready for 30 touches a game, baby. And if that's the case, I mean, I think that's obviously going to hurt his long-term value just because they're going to use him up in maybe a lost season. But like for the time being, we might be looking at like RB1, RB2 for this season. It's an interesting trade-off.
Yeah, it very much is an interesting trade-off, and one that I could very much like. I could make the argument in either direction, which I think is what makes this so challenging. But I mean, largely speaking, like Sean McVay's history has kind of told us, like, he likes to lean on this one running back. It's just a question of like, this is kind of a new circumstance that we're seeing play out here with the Los Angeles Rams. So.
All right, Kay, let's talk about some players that we are going to try to acquire ahead of week 3, including a couple of receivers. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's the only sportsbook that I use on Sundays for my money line bets. We got a great slate of games here in week 3, kind of like the Steelers to cover against the Chargers this week in a pretty low-scoring game. But we actually have something a little bit different for you this week. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you're going to be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. As a Cowboy fan living in Pennsylvania, I've needed Sunday Ticket my whole life, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is absolutely fantastic. So to get Sunday Ticket, just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast every day, as we'll be back on Friday getting you ready for week 3. So make sure you tune in for that. Okay, let's talk about some trade targets ahead of week 3. Who are you going to try to acquire in your dynasty leagues before the games kick off?
I'm actually going to talk about a couple of running backs, which I feel like we never talk about like trading for running backs unless they're the cream of the crop. But I actually think there are a couple of interesting values right now. And I want to talk first about Patriots running back Rhamondre Stevenson, who just got #paid this past season. RB22 in the latest batch of Dynasty Startup, 26 years old. And Marcus, I'm just going to say it. I've been shocked to see his heavy usage here through the first 2 weeks of the season. And I do think that like we're, kind of nearing this corner of, maybe the Drake May comes to fruition. Maybe Jalen Polk starts to, emerge into the fantasy scape. And suddenly we're looking at a better offense than we thought. And Rhamondre Stevenson is king of this offense. So like, I'm kind of in. He's got the long-term deal. He's got the workload. He's got what I think will be an ascending offense. Like, why not?
And he's cheap. Being drafted as RB22 right now in your dynasty leagues. And he's certainly outproducing that, right? And I love Rhamondre's talent. And I think this is an ascending offense. Now, it might not seem like that for a while. And they play the Jets tonight. That could be a rough game. But you look at like the rest of this division moving forward, games against the Patriots and the Dolphins and the Bills. Like, I could see Rhamondre having a big game because he is such a good receiver. I'm all in on Rhamondre Stevenson. I think this is a great buy.
Yeah, great buy. And also, he looks healthy, which I think that was, kind of a big question for him because it has been a while since we saw him healthy. 2023 was kind of like a scratch for him, just dealing with so many injuries.
Yep.
Seeing him fully healthy, you kind of remember why you were so excited about Rhamondre Stevenson just a couple of seasons ago. Also want to talk about your guy, Tony Pollard. You have been the resident Tony Pollard truther here. And I mean, again, from a workload perspective, from a contract perspective, he's kind of in the same boat as Rhamondre Stevenson. He got paid. He's on, an offense with a young offensive line, but, I think an offense that might be a little bit better than you would guess from the, Will Levis highlights. But like, let's go, Tony Pollard.
And he looks healthy, right? And that's the key thing. If you look at his numbers in like the second half of last year and through the first 2 games of this year, it's not quite like what we saw in 2022, but it's pretty darn close. Like, you're getting one of the more explosive running backs in the league. The yards per carry are way up. I don't have a lot of concerns about Tajay Spears because Tony Pollard's getting most of the work anyways in this backfield. I think Tony Pollard, Rhamondre Stevenson, like if you want to upgrade your RB2 spot, I think both of those guys are outstanding buys going into week 3. Kate, I want to mention a receiver really quickly. And I mean, listen, you know how much I love this guy. Zay Flowers from the Baltimore Ravens being drafted outside of the top 20 receivers in your dynasty leagues right now, but 21 targets through the first 2 games of the season, 2 carries as well. Also has 4 other targets that were taken back by penalties. So like Baltimore is trying to get him the ball. And the other part of this is after the week 2 game, Zay Flowers went to Twitter to complain about not getting enough touches. I mean, this might be like the squeaky wheel gets the grease against Dallas. Like there's just a chance where he's getting double-digit targets every week from Lamar Jackson. I also saw a thing on Establish the Run about how he is 5th in the NFL in expected points among wide receivers. It hasn't always been that case or been that way through the first 2 games because of other circumstances. But like, I think you can buy him relatively cheap now, and you're getting somebody who is just going to gobble up double-digit targets every week from Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I still have my question marks as to what he can do deep down the field if he's not generating separation, because obviously he is an undersized wide receiver. So like not going to win the battle of strength in the contested catch category, but like that's my only kind of reservation for him is like how varied can his role be? Like Xavier Worthy, we know he could do just about everything. He could do the short, intermediate, long game. I don't have that same amount of confidence in Zay Flowers, but as the wide receiver one on this team that you know is going to be producing a ton of points, it's really hard to pass him up as a potential value.
I love Zay Flowers. I also just want him on my team to root for because he can be so exciting. He's so dynamic. And I think as we get further away from some of these really good defenses, and let's remember, like week 1, they play the Chiefs. I don't think anybody's questioning how good the Chiefs defense is, right? The Raiders were a top 10 defense last year, and I think they are even better this year. They play the Cowboys this week. Oh, we'll see about this Cowboys defense, but this was a Cowboys defense that was really good over the last 3 years. Like there are going to be games coming up where he just has a much easier matchup. I think now is the time to buy before they get into all these shootout games. And maybe, Kate, maybe it starts this week against Dallas. Who knows?
Fingers crossed for Zay Flowers, not for your Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL Now with 2 shows every single day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks you off in the morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. And then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you get Locked On Dynasty, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. You guys know by now. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Modjuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy Thursday Night Football, and we'll see you right back here on Friday morning.